Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening. I know that in your busy lives and schedules, time is the most precious resource, and it's the ultimate compliment to us that you're choosing to spend your evening here tonight learning and building your business with women in tech and entrepreneurship. Tonight's session is Price It Like You Mean It, why your pricing is holding you back and how to fix it, by a truly incredible expert at Etinosa. Before we dive into our session tonight, I'm just going to share a little bit of information about our community here at Women in Tech and Entrepreneurship. Many of you are familiar faces. For those of you who are new, our mission here is to resource women in tech and entrepreneurship with near-peer mentorship, educational opportunities, and a support network. And we do it all for free, thanks to experts like Etinosa, thanks to our volunteers, some of whom are here in the room. If you are on that WTE leadership team, go ahead and shout yourselves out there as someone to connect with. And of course, sponsors are always helpful. We believe financial barriers should not limit your opportunities for connection and success. So we have a community of 5,000 women working in technology, startups, venture capital, entrepreneurship, economic development, and those business support organizations. So your incubators, your accelerators, your tech stars. And of course, we're always open to the fellas, the collaborators, co-conspirators, and supporters. We offer a job board and virtual community on Slack. So if you have applied to join us as a member, you have access to that. We've been able to connect a lot of women to amazing talent for their business and career opportunities for themselves. We know in those early stages of building, many of you might be side hustling or working other career opportunities. We also facilitate mentorship through that channel. So if you have questions that are coming up in your business, you can share them there. They oftentimes drive the content that we plan for our community at WTE. If you live somewhere in the state of Florida, chances are there is a chapter within an hour drive of you. We offer social events at all of those chapters every month. In addition to workshops and fireside chats like this, which we always offer online to make sure that regardless of your mobility, of your demands at home, of maybe needing to work late in the office, that you're able to get the information that you need to be successful. As you can see, quite a busy lineup here for May. There is a lot going on. You can scan this little QR code here to sign up for any of these events completely for free. Our Orlando chapter meetup is tomorrow. I'm excited to see a lot of you all there. Gainesville on Wednesday, Fort Lauderdale on Wednesday as well. I'll be there. And next week, Tampa, Fort Myers, Jacksonville, Palm Beach, and St. Pete are getting together. And building on your skills today, we're actually going to follow up in June on the 5th with some technical sales training, sales strategies that actually convert, led by Katie Hassan. So if you're struggling with pricing, you might also be struggling with selling. We're here to help with that too. That event is at the QR code, and we'll share that again with everyone who attended. While we transition over to Etinosa, we want to make sure that you get to connect with her and her company. If this is something that you really need a deeper dive on, I encourage you to scan, and hopefully I've remembered to update all of our QR codes. Now I'm having a crisis of confidence. And then, of course, the link to join our community for free is right here. And I will pass it over to Etinosa. Is it easier? Do you want to drive your slides, or do you want me to?
I think it's easier if I drive them because there's some animation in them. So if
I'll stop, yeah, and I'll let you pull yours up to make sure that works as you like it.
Okay, perfect. Let me figure out how to do that. Sharing window feels like the right thing to do.
Yes, that will work well. And so then you're just going to pull up the tab that you want, and it should give you a little hover of our, you got it? There we go, perfect, we can see it.
It's working? Can we see that?
We can see it.
All right, amazing. All right, awesome. Now I can't see anybody, but I hope that everyone can see the presentation all right.
We've got a click to exit full screen. So I think it has jumped to a different window. One thing that might help, if you go back in there, stop presenting, and then click that tab, pick your Chrome tab. If your presentation mode is on, you'll see one of those says Canva, and it'll have your presentation, and that will keep you in that window.
Okay, let's try that. Is that better?
You got it.
Okay, amazing. Love it. All right, I will rely on you, Rachel. If there's anything coming through in the chat, or any hand raise, if you wouldn't mind just calling that out, because now I can see the full presentation, but I can't see anybody, but that's perfectly fine.
I'll be your eyes in the chat here.
I appreciate it. Okay, thank you everybody for coming today, and thank you to Rachel and WT for really creating this space that allows women and really champions women's growth. I think what you all are doing with WT is amazing, and I know I've gotten so much value from it, and I'm sure other people have as well. So tonight we're going to talk about pricing, and I wanted us to jump right in, and then we can talk through the agenda and things like that. But let's start from the top. I will also warn that this is going to be pretty interactive, so I encourage everyone to get off of mute and speak and ask questions as we go along. Strongly prefer for questions during the presentation. I will not have a separate Q&A section, so it's much better if you ask questions, if you share insights as we're going through the conversation and the presentation, so that way it's more interactive and we can learn from each other versus having like, an awkward Q&A at the end of the presentation. Does that sound good?
Sounds great.
All right, awesome. So let's start with pricing. Imagine that you're looking at this vase. It's sort of like nice lapis lazuli thing going on, gorgeous vase, and you're thinking about purchasing it. Now, let's assume that you're thinking about buying this vase and you're in like a high-end street, sort of like a Bergdorf's or Bloomingdale's or like a Harrods, something like that, a little bit higher end. How much do you think the vase is worth? Just throw out any numbers because I can't see anybody or see the chat. So please feel free to just throw out whatever numbers you think the vase might be worth.
$55.
55, okay.
I was going to say 350.
350, okay.
1,500.
Don
I was
was
going to say about
800.
2,000.
Did I hear 2,000?
Yes,
There
I
are
said
2,000 in
2,000.
the chat.
All right, so we've got a range. We've got everywhere from 350, 1,500, 2,000, 800. Now let's assume that you're traveling, right? You're wandering through a fish supermarket or something, and you go in down an alleyway, and around the corner you find this quirky little store that's selling pottery products. And now you're looking at the same vase, but you're in this context. How much do you think the vase is worth now? How much would you be willing to pay for it in USD? Again, just shout out answers.
$125. 125.
Okay. I'm hearing 125. Any other thoughts?
$100.
Okay.
We've got 30 and 55 in the chat.
Okay.
150.
Oh. So pretty much we've gone from a high of 2,000 to a high of 150, and all that has changed in terms of what we know about this vase is the context in which we're purchasing it. So what does that tell us about price? Right off the bat, what does that tell us about how pricing works?
You better look good asking for money.
That it's
Location.
relative.
It talks like your marketing strategy, what your item looks like, how much more you could possibly sell it for, depending on the look of it and the environment that it's placed in.
Location, location, location.
That too. What we're hearing from everybody is that pricing is dynamic. If there's one thing I want us to take away from today's session, it is that when we as entrepreneurs think about pricing and think about putting a number on our products, our services, our goods, we often start from this position of, okay, but what's it really worth? What is the intrinsic value of what I'm offering? And I would like for you today to take away that pricing is relative. There's no such thing as intrinsic value. There's no such thing as what something is truly worth. What anything is worth depends on the context in which we're evaluating it. And that context is going to be impacted by the psychology we bring to it. It's going to be impacted by the actual environment. It's going to be impacted by a range of things, in addition to, yes, the value we see that it's delivering to us. What you're looking at in front of you is, it's called an Ebbinghaus illusion. And pretty much, if I asked you, looking at the two kind of orange dots in front of you, the one on the left and the right, intuitively, just intuitively, which one seems bigger? Just like pick intuitively, if you know any of them seem bigger.
The right one.
Mm. So the Ebbinghaus illusion is interesting because the two dots are actually the same size. The orange dots are actually the same size, but because of the context in which they are placed, right? When the dot is placed around bigger circles, it looks smaller, whereas when it's placed around smaller circles, it looks bigger, even though they're of the same size. Price functions in the same way. The context will drive and impact quite a bit of what we do and how we perceive pricing. And so price is dynamic. We're going to move from that as our foundational tier. Before we move any further, my name is Etinosa Agbonlahor. Rachel already did an amazing job introducing me. And I'm a behavioral economist at Decision Alpha. And what we do is pricing and monetization for growth stage companies, bringing the psychology behind how we process financial decisions into how you're building your financial strategy. What we're going to do today is talk through a couple of things. We're going to talk about the psychology of pricing. We're going to talk about one big pricing mistakes I see founders and entrepreneurs make often. And then we're going to move away from the psychology and the mistakes. We're going to move to, okay, how do you actually set prices that drive revenue? And how do you frame prices in a way that resonates with customers? And then I'll show you how you can work with me if you would like for me to take a look at your pricing or work with Decision Alpha at the end of all of this. Sounds good?
Yes.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, we do have one hand up.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I make sure it wasn't meant to be a thumbs up. Roxanne.
Yep, my bad.
That's okay. We'll keep going.
But it's good practice. Thank you, Rachel and Roxanne. That's great practice for us to remember to keep an eye on the thumbs up. That's exactly how it's going to flow. All right. What comes up for you when you think about pricing your product or service? Just toss out any instinctive feelings or answers that immediately come up for you.
Dread.
Mm.
We've got anxiety in chat.
I know
Lisa,
that I undervalue it.
Mm. So I'm hearing dread, anxiety, undervalue.
Estimate what people want to pay for it.
Say that again.
We guesstimate what
Guesstimate.
people will pay.
All right. One more.
Fear that they won't pay for it.
So I'm hearing dread, I'm hearing anxiety, I'm hearing undervaluing, that's a big one. Fear, guesstimating. All of this is pointing to a couple of things that I see when it comes to founders and entrepreneurs thinking through, how do I actually price? How do I think through pricing in a way that's not going to get my customers to churn, that's going to get me the maximum value for what I offer, and that's going to help me show up in the right spaces. Before we dive too deep, I want to tell you all a story, and I promise that this is relevant to what we're going to talk about today. I had a friend who, he was, wanted a relationship the way a lot of people do, and he wasn't finding what he was looking for in the area that he lived in. And so he had run into a matchmaker at a party, friend of a friend of a friend, I guess. And he was telling me about this matchmaker, and he mentioned that, oh, she costs about $1,000, which, if you know anything about how matchmaking works, the average ticket price for a matchmaker is about $15,000. That's where they start from. So this $1,000 matchmaker, he was a bit like, it's super budget, but it's a good way for me to kind of dip my toe into the world of matchmaking if it works out. If it doesn't work out, that's okay too. It's very, very, very cheap compared to what I was expecting. I ran into my friend a couple of weeks later, and I'm like, hey, how's it going? Did you do the matchmaking thing? How's it going? And he's so upset. He's like, I'm so frustrated. I've been working with her for almost 5 weeks now. Not a single match at Etinosa. Not a single match. Nothing. I'm frustrated. I feel like because I went with the budget option, I'm getting an incompetent experience. His words, not mine. He also then mentioned that we have a friend of a friend who lives in New York, and he also knows a matchmaker who's like more of the standard, like the 15K tier. And my friend was going to be in New York, so he had asked and reached out, can we have a coffee? I really am serious about this thing. Would love to have a coffee and figure out who can work together. Fast forward a couple of months, talking to my friend again. Did you go with the New York matchmaker? How's it going? Did you give up on matchmaking entirely? What's going on? He had signed up with a more expensive matchmaker, and he said to me, oh, I've been working with her for about a month-ish now. She hasn't gotten me any matches yet, but I love the amount of rigor that she's putting into the process. Like, I'm learning so much about myself, I'm learning about like my preferences, and I know that the amount of time it's taking her to find a match for me is because she's really taking her time to like filter and make sure that like she's presenting the best possible candidates. I want us to take a step back and evaluate these two scenarios. In one instance, in both instances, actually, you had a matchmaker who had worked with my friend for 5 to 6 weeks in either instance, and neither of them had produced any matches for him, which my understanding is that matchmaking means that you produce matches for the person. So neither of them had produced any results to date as of the 4 or 5 weeks we were talking. And yet with the budget matchmaker, he was just like really frustrated. He called her incompetent. He was not having it. Whereas with the higher ticket, he had a lot of rationale and excuses, and he had a great deal of appreciation, even though he hadn't seen any results. Thoughts on this? What do you feel like this is telling us about pricing?
Well, one gave him reasons why she wasn't finding anything, and also was preparing him.
Alicia in the chat says the value wasn't just in the match. Tanya says perceived quality from the higher price. Yeah.
I love all of those. Those are so spot on. Price translates value. I always tell people that price is a way of saying to your customers, like, hey, you're in the right room. You're where you're supposed to be. You're having a conversation you're supposed to be having, and you're going to get the impact that you're looking for. So a price isn't just a number. It's not just revenue. It's not just growth. It's a way of you communicating to your customers, you are buying the right thing at the right level. You're going to get the impact that you deserve. It's a way of saying to the people who you want to work with you, you're actually in the right room. There was a study that was done a while ago, and what they did was test 2 pills at different price points. So one pill, these were pain relievers. So one was $2.50. So for a single pill was $2.50. And then the other pill was 10 cents. And they tested this, A/B tested it with research participants. They took the pill, and people who had taken the more expensive pill, they knew what those pills cost. Folks who had taken the more expensive pain reliever, 85% of them were more likely to report that they actually had, like, they felt the pills were effective, compared to 61% who had taken the 10-cent pill. Now, both of these pills were just like sugar pills or placebos. They didn't do anything to anybody. But just from the price alone, people were more likely to report actual physical impact of the pill and derived effectiveness from the pill just by knowing what they cost. So price can be a really, really, really powerful tool to communicate the value you're going to deliver to your customer. A while ago, a couple of slides ago, I had asked what comes up when we think about pricing, and we heard anxiety, dread, fear, guesstimating. I see, as a behavioral scientist, I see a lot of psychological hangups that founders, entrepreneurs bring to the table when we think through pricing. There's 3 big ones I want to call out and highlight for us this evening. The first one is what we call a self-assessment bias. And that's pretty much like, and I'm not going to share slides on these 3. There's a report where you can get all of them, so don't worry about keeping track of these. But the self-assessment bias is essentially like, if you've ever put makeup on in the mirror and you look at yourself and you look flawless, like everything it looks good, you look good. And then you lean all the way into the mirror and look at that one flaw that always bugs you and you're like, still there, I'm gonna have to work on this. Has anybody ever done that?
Just this past weekend.
And so the self-assessment bias is essentially when you as an expert are more aware of all the flaws in your product or in the thing that you've built, and so you undervalue it relative to your customers who are enjoying the impact of the product, right? It's like you built this thing, your customers are like, this is amazing, it's saving me so much time, so much effort, I am getting so much value from it. And all you can think about as the person who actually built it is, oh my goodness, the UX is terrible. It's just such terrible UX. Oh, there's like a budge in the back. This thing is basically like duct tape. I need to get better, like devs in. And all you can think about is all the flaws in the product. What that self-assessment bias basically drives us to do as experts, as entrepreneurs, as builders and founders is undervalue our work. Instead of thinking about what is the impact of my product on other people, we're focused on what's wrong with it. Why doesn't it work? Why isn't it as great as it could be? That's the first fear, is that self-assessment bias. The second thing that I see among founders is a fear of backlash, especially when it comes to raising prices. And this one is linked to the fact that as human beings, we tend to be risk averse, right? We would rather not do anything, so we see a bunch of inertia. We'd rather just not change anything, touch anything, do anything, than do something and feel like we're going to regret it or experience regret from changing something. And so the fear of backlash really comes with raising prices. And often I can tell when there's that fear because I see people start to do weird things like introduce price tiers that don't make sense or send out over complex explanations of the new pricing tiers, or just not raise prices for a very long time until they are forced to raise prices as a reaction because customer acquisition costs are through the roof and they're losing money and investors are asking questions. I actually saw this recently with RelayFi, they're a fintech app out of Canada, and I use them for some of the stuff that I do in real estate. And last week, literally last week, they sent an email out explaining that they were going to be introducing new pricing tiers and there were going to be prices introduced for some stuff that used to be free. So they're moving from that freemium model to a more kind of price-based model. And I could tell that the RelayFi team was not comfortable with this pricing increase because they sent the longest email, super convoluted, nothing really felt intuitive. And I, as a pricing expert who's been doing this for almost a decade, had to email them and email their customer service and be like, hey, what does this mean for me? Like, how much are ACH inbounds going to cost now? Just tell me in 5 words. Explain like I'm 12. Just tell me what this means for me. Whereas where people have confidence, where people are sure about their price increase, where they're sure that they're increasing prices in a way that aligns with the value they're delivering, communication is straightforward, it's simple, it's intuitive. Customers understand, yeah, the price is going up because they're delivering more value to me. And there's ways to have that conversation. So we've talked about the self-assessment bias. We've talked about that fear of backlash with raising prices. The final thing that I see with founders and builders like us is that we call this the spotlight effect. It's like we think that our customers have like microscopes and are like peering at everything we do in great detail. Like they just really are obsessed with. And so what that means or what that translates to is that we have this fear that if we raise prices, if we introduce prices where things used to be freemium, if we do anything that's different to what we've been doing before, our customers are going to flip out. They're going to turn the table over, they're going to churn, and they're just going to leave us. That's it. The whole thing is going to collapse if we change anything because we think our customers are just paying that much attention to what we're doing. There was a study that was done a couple of years ago, and what they did was go into shopping centers. So imagine that you're shopping at like a Publix or at a Whole Foods or wherever you shop, and you've just taken an ice cream jar from the fridge and popped it into your basket, and then you see like a researcher come up to you with like a little clipboard, and he's like, excuse me, how much was that ice cream that you just put into your basket? How much did it cost? In this study, they found that 3 out of 5 people, that's 3 out of 5 people could not remember the price of the thing they had literally just touched and put into their basket. Like they just put it into the basket. Most people couldn't remember. And of the folks who could remember, 40% couldn't remember, they could remember only up to like a 10% differential. Like they had no idea what the actual price was. They're like, oh, it's kind of, maybe it's $4.50, I think, I'm not sure. That should be telling us that your customers are really not paying that much attention to what you're doing when it comes to prices and price increases. It's sort of like raising the volume on your television. There's a level to which you can increase it where you're like, okay, acceptable, and then whoops, you've gone too far. Within the acceptable range, there's quite a lot of things that you can play with and test where your customers who really are not paying that much attention to your price changes will be comfortable with. Any questions on this? Any thoughts on this? We want to make sure everyone is kind of absorbing all of this before we move forward.
Pangy has her hand up.
Hello, thank you. So I have a question in regards to that. Would that depend on the brand? If it's a trusted brand, they're not really paying attention to, for instance, for the ice cream, they're not paying attention the to the price as much. Would that be one aspect of it?
It could be one aspect of it, but also sometimes what you see with CPG brands is where you think if you have a brand that's more utilitarian, where you think you might be attracting customers who are more price sensitive, you see that what they do is they shrink the amount of product in the container, but they keep the price steady because they think, okay, people are really going to pay attention to the price of chicken just based on like the economy that we are, and people are really penny pinching. We're not going to change the price, but we're just going to reduce the amount of chicken that's like in the container. So it absolutely does depend on the brand. It also can depend on the context in which your customers are purchasing, right? You might expect that people who are shopping in like a Whole Foods and are kind of moving quickly might not be counting or doing the tallying up as much as people who might be in a different circumstance. So it probably is brand, but it also is like context and circumstance. And there's things that you can do to play with that that pricing even within that.
Thank you so much.
I have a quick question. This is Tisa with Tibella's, and I have a juice and smoothie and wellness business. I'm always contemplating on my bottle marketing. I heard you say that someone can say 1,000 times that the product is good. And you're absolutely correct. In the back of my mind, I'm like, now what can I do to make this better? So my question is, I know marketing plays a huge role in it. Should I be working more on the labeling so to catch people's eye better with more vibrant colors? Because right now I just use like just a regular transparent label, but it has all the ingredients and the importance of the juice or the smoothie in it.
Keep listening because as we go down, there's some questions I want to ask to unpack this a little bit.
Okay.
Curious, who are your customers? Who are you serving? Do they understand the value of what you're delivering to them? Because it might even be not just about the label, it could be more about who are you having the conversations with and who are you selling to and what are the expectations from like a juice brand, an organic juice brand, a premium juice brand, for example. So let's keep going. And then there's a place where I start to talk about monetization zones. Bring the question up again and let's explore it there, or you can grab some time with me later as well.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions before we move on? Okay. The last kind of bigger psychological hang-up that I see founders and entrepreneurs kind of anchor on, and I call this a big mistake, actually. I'm going to say it's a mistake. I'm going to call it flat out, is that I often see that founders anchor to what their competitors are doing. I was having a conversation with somebody at an accelerator mixer drinks thing a couple of weeks ago, and we're talking pricing strategy. And they said to me, oh, I've just always imagined that I'll price based on what my competitors are doing and then just like undercut them a little. So maybe by 10% or something. And I was like, okay, wait, hang on. Did you create your product because you looked at what your competitors were doing and you felt like you could deliver more value than your competitors? Yes. Are you saying to your investors that your product does in fact deliver more value than your competitors? Yes. So why would you charge less money compared to what your competitors? This strategy of anchoring to what competitors are doing or making it the focal point, the keystone of your pricing strategy can be really dangerous because it, first of all, doesn't necessarily allow yourself to differentiate formally or properly from your competitors, but then it also starts to anchor you to their strategy. If you're delivering more value to a different kind of client, if you're delivering more value in more ways and having more impact to your customers than they are doing, you risk underpricing your work and getting less value for the work and value you're delivering if you anchor solely to competitors. Competitive research absolutely should be a part of pricing strategy, but it cannot be the foundation. It can't be, oh, I just look at whatever it is they're doing and I'm going to make whatever mistakes they're making, and I'm then also going to undercut them, so I'm going to earn a little bit less than what they're earning. Another big risk with doing things this way is that oftentimes you hear people going talking about, oh, I just want to grab as much market share as possible, and then once I do that, I'm going to monetize the product. I used to work at a big company where we had launched, we had like a small fintech within the massive company. And so we had launched this fintech product, and the powers that be really wanted to use this, like just grab market share at all costs, like customer acquisition costs were crazy, but let's grab market share at all costs and then we can filter through. So we grabbed market share. We grew by 100,000 customers in 1 year. It was wild how quickly we're acquiring customers. But because we're acquiring any kind of customer, what happened to our numbers? Engagement was pretty much zero. Retention, not a lot. Customer acquisition cost through the roof. Customer's lifetime value, nothing. We had brought the wrong people into our room, and then we were getting frustrated that our metrics were telling us, hey, you don't have the right customers. And so if your strategy is also one where you've thought through, I'm just going to get as many people as possible and then like try and somehow make them into good customers, that can end up being really frustrating for you, and it can slow your growth down the line, because you're trying to raise and you're looking at, and your investors are asking you what's going on with your engagement numbers. Why is nobody engaging with your product? Well, we got the wrong customers in the first place. That's why. And that can stem from anchoring to what your competitors are doing and then just trying to undercut them. So that can be a really dangerous strategy. Highly do not recommend that we do that. What should we be doing instead? I'm a big believer in the power of behavioral economics, and behavioral economics essentially studies the psychology behind how people are making financial decisions. I think that, and I know that I've done this for a decade, behavioral economics has a way of helping us understand how people are actually thinking through these money decisions. How are they choosing? How does context inform and influence what you're doing? And how can we then use that to design better tools, better processes, better systems that will deliver a better outcome for them and the people involved? I want to tell you a story about this. So you guys know, and I just mentioned at the top of the call, I used to work in Australia. And the very first project I worked on, I was working for a bank there. Very first project I worked on, this bank was huge. So 1 in every 3 Australians banked with us, meaning like the whole entire country. A third of them comfortably had some sort of product with us. It was a massive organization. The collections business had called me in actually. They're like, hey, we had your behavioral economics, come, we need your help. They had called me in because they felt that they weren't collecting as effectively as they could be. So collections is folks who are kind of late on their credit card payments or on their mortgage payments. They're sort of in arrears of any kind, but this was focused on early stage arrears. So you've missed 1 credit card payment or 2 credit card payments. It's not that bad. It's kind of like early stage. It's still very much fixable, but they felt like it wasn't as effective as it could be. They also saw that their NPS numbers, meaning like customer satisfaction, weren't great. And worse, the employee scores, the employee satisfaction wasn't good either. Now, this is a bank that prided itself on employees love working here. Like our employees love working with us. And so they were really worried that employee satisfaction was just not good at all. So they had called me in to have this conversation to see what was going on and suggest some fixes for it. And so I'm in the collections business, and I want you to imagine like a massive room, big room, cubicles everywhere. And in the cubicles are agents who are having conversations with customers who are in arrears. And so they're talking to them and walking them through, okay, this is what's going on. How can we help? Let's create a payment plan that will help you get back on your feet and not have you stuck in this arrear cycle forever. I'm listening and I'm jacked up. So I'm jacked up. I have a mic as well. I'm listening to a conversation that this agent next to me is having with a customer. So I can hear the conversation, but they can't hear anything that I'm saying. And essentially, I'm watching as the agent is preparing. She's dialing out to the customer. She's reading the call script in front of her because they all had a call script that they followed very closely. Customer picks up. They do the kind of KYC, identify each other. And then the agent kind of asks the customer, you know, what's going on with your credit card bill? And I hear this customer say, and I'm never going to forget this, I hear him say, we just found out that my wife has cancer and we're struggling, we're drowning. And right away, this agent goes into like empathy mode. She's like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Like, how are you going? What can we do? She's just like right away a human being. She's no longer like an employee at a bank. She's a person talking to a person. And they had this meaningful, big conversation, really long conversation, where even in the middle of the conversation, they work out a payment plan that's going to allow this customer to get back on his feet, taking into consideration what he's dealing with his wife. And at the end of the conversation, I can hear the customers about to say, thank you. And I see this kind of like anguish, kind of like a wince go across this agent's face, like that thing where you're about to do something that you don't really want to do. And she kind of squeaks out the words, is there any way that you can pay more? Exactly. The reason she had to ask that question was because the bank's call script required that all agents do something called raising. And in raising, pretty much, it was once you had created a payment plan with the customer, regardless of whatever the circumstances, regardless of what was going on, as soon as you create a payment plan, you had to then ask them if they could pay any more money. Operationally, from a commercial perspective, it totally made sense, right? You made a payment plan, see if you can get any more, squeeze some more juice out of the orange, right? But from a human perspective, employees hated it, customers hated it, and it was affecting the collections business. This is where behavioral economics comes in. We're able to design a new call script and actually test a new call script that gave agents more flexibility in determining when to raise or not. End of the day, results were the agents who were participating in that experiment, they collected more money. So the bank was happy from a commercial perspective. The agents had higher employee satisfaction compared to others who were still using the old call script. And NPS went up. Customers were also more satisfied with this experience compared to folks who were using the BAU or the usual experience. All of that to say, when you're designing, when you're building tools from a perspective of how do people actually make financial decisions and how can we help them get to a better place using that knowledge, you're more likely to design tools and systems and processes that resonate with your customers and help you also as a business owner get to a better place, both financially and in terms of your financial well-being. So that's really why we believe in the power of behavioral economics, and that's why we blended it into what we call the pricing edge framework. This is what we use. This is the framework that we use to help actually build our pricing strategy that scales with businesses. This is what you're going to use if you're thinking through what should I be pricing my product, what should I be charging or pricing my service, my SaaS, etc. with. There's kind of 4 steps to it. The first one is you really want to start by mapping monetization zones. And what that pretty much is doing is figuring out what can I charge for. A lot of times when we have a product, we look at it through one lens, self-assessment bias, right? I built this product to help with calendars, and so I can only think about it as a calendaring product. Well, my customers are using it as a scheduling product, and they're combining 4 or 5 different calendars, and soccer moms are using it to like figure out like coaching and team schedules, and consulting professionals are using it in a specific way. I have a lot of different use cases for the product, but I can only think about it in one way because I built it for that one thing. So we step back and we go, what actually can you charge for? Let's map our monetization zones out, and we'll dive deeper into that in this session. Then we move to, what you can charge for, what should you actually price it? And there's standardized instruments and research questions you can use to like figure out what should I be pricing my work at. And then we talk through how do you actually present those prices. And once you frame those prices, you brought that psychology into things, you created the context around it. How do I make sure I'm testing, I'm refining, I'm scaling my pricing so that as my product grows, as the impact and value I deliver grow, my pricing also scales with that. Today, we're only going to focus on the first and the third parts of this, but I'll tell you how you can access the second and fourth. There's a free report. You can use it whenever you need to. I'll stop here. Any questions, thoughts before we dive deeper?
We are seeing some challenges with issues of customers really wanting more work than their budget can accommodate. Some specific examples are when you're working in an RFP kind of scenario, and in particular, Sarah also mentions, influx of consultants and kind of individual players out there making the competition much higher, and that customers are conscious of that, kind of taking advantage of that. And she certainly set the mindset the right way for this. But I think any advice you have, this is a common thing that we have come up.
So the question is, in a crowded and competitive landscape, how are we distinguishing and differentiating ourselves? Is that the question?
I think it's partly that, but it may more so revolve around when a customer has a set budget and expects more delivered than that budget can accommodate. And definitely, Sarah, if I'm butchering it, please correct me. I got a little thumbs up, so I think I'm on the right track.
Okay. With regard to set budgets and working with a customer's budget, I firmly believe that if a customer sees that what you're doing is of value and if they want the impact that you are going to deliver to them, more budget can always be found. It depends on the kind of customer, right? If it's an enterprise customer, if it's like an SMB, usually like things can be shifted around. It might not come from the marketing budget. It might be like it coming from the tech budget because there's a tech component to this as well. This is why this mapping monetization zones is really important because it allows you to understand who else can I be selling to? How else can I be framing and positioning my product? Because it could be like, we've always framed ourselves as a marketing consultants, and so we're always selling marketing, but we have ways of also framing ourselves as, in addition to marketing, there's a tech component to the work that we do, and so we should be talking to the CTO in addition to the CMO of the business. And it could be that the CTO pays for this part of the work that we do, and the CMO is paying for the other part of the work that we do. We're splitting out the value to different camps. If you find that you're in a competitive landscape where there's kind of like lots of people coming in and they're setting what we call an internal kind of like revenue line, right? There's sort of like a price point that they're setting in your customers' minds. Then it could be that you need to start thinking through, how do we differentiate and distinguish ourselves? Are we delivering more impact? Are we going to niche down and be very specialized so that then we say we only deal with this niche, we're super experts in this niche, and so we can price in a way that kind of builds a moat for us. But I usually find that if you're dealing with a budget issue, it could be that you're not talking to enough people, you're not necessarily splitting out the value in the right ways and talking to enough people who have budgets that can kind of pour into that. And then if it's an issue of there's so many people pouring into the market and they're setting like a lower and lower and lower threshold, so we find ourselves competing on price, you need to step back. And I'll talk about this monetization zone exercise, but it's helpful to step back and go, maybe we're starting to market in a way that's positioning ourselves as a commodity. How do we step back and maybe we need a new niche, we need a new way of refining ourselves so we can start to talk about the impact that we're delivering to a specific niche or a specific skill set. Does that make sense? Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, that really resonates for me. I'm checking the chat here as well. Sarah, does that track for you, or do you have follow-on questions?
Absolutely. I'm eager to hear about this. Step number 1.
All right, fabulous.
All right, awesome. Let's go through number 1, and then as more questions come up, happy to take them. And where we need to dive deeper, I'll show you how we can do that as well. So step number 1, all right, here we go. Mapping monetization zones. And this is where we start by taking off our product hat, taking off our marketing hat, taking off our CTO hats, and putting on the customer hat. When we think through mapping monetization zones, what we're trying to establish is, who are my customers and how do they use my product? What we want to do is understand what is the context in which my customer is operating before they come into my product, when they're using my product and on, right? We want to understand what is the customer context. The reason why this is important to do, the reason why this is important to do is that it helps us get into the customer's mindset. It also helps us start to understand, what are my customers' needs and where does my customers' needs align and intersect with the value I deliver to them? Because then that allows us to say, okay, maybe there's an opportunity for a value exchange here. There's an opportunity for monetizing. That's why we call it monetization zones. So let me walk you through what that might look like practically, and then I'm happy to answer any questions. I have a friend in New York. Her name is Anya. Anya is a professional dancer, and she's amazing. She's done this for a very long time. Anya also has consulting. She also offers consulting. She has 2 main types of clients. She's got professional dancers who come to her because they need to refine their technique. So like her, they're professionals. They're going from competition to competition, from this to that. They are very focused on, I'm not looking for a generalist. I need somebody who's going to help me fix this one thing. Like my turns, I'm not getting enough momentums in my turns. Can you help me fix that? What do I need to do? So they're coming to her to refine the technique, the expectations that it's going to be high impact, it's going to be efficient. And also they come to her as needed. So they don't have like ongoing consultations with her. They're like, can you help me fix this thing? She fixes it. They go and they come back when they have other problems. Anya also works with female executives, and what she does with them is embodiment coaching. So people, when coaches or people come to her and say, I feel like I'm in like this more masculine, like dominated spaces a lot, and I feel like I'm performing oftentimes, and I no longer feel like I'm completely safe in my body. I'm no longer sure like I feel like 100% myself when I'm in those kinds of spaces, and I can feel like it's starting to like affect me. I don't feel 100% myself. She's able to work with them and give them coaching to like bring their full selves in whatever spaces they're in, especially when they're experiencing a lot of stress. For them, her execs, they're coming to her and they're expecting like, okay, this is something I've never done before. I just know something isn't quite right. I don't know what it's gonna look like to fix it, but I trust you. And so they expect kind of like a gradual impact over time. And so for them, they're looking for, is there some sort of package? Is there a set curriculum? So everything Anya does is still rooted in her experience and her expertise as a dancer in movement and intuition, but the people who she's serving are very different. When she and I had a chat a couple of months ago, and we're walking through this framework of, let's understand who your customers are and the tasks they needed to do that brought them to your doorstep. We call that the job to be done framework. It is, what are the things my customers need, step by step, task by task? I want to lay them out. And then I want to see where what I'm doing intersects with what my customer is looking for. So for Anya's dancers, for example, it could be, oh, I've identified a specific technical weakness. I want to get feedback on that. I think it could be posture, alignment, form. I then expect to practice like some drills, and that's going to help me get better. I would love to be able to track my progress, to like give me some assessment so I can see that I'm actually getting better through this. Does this all make sense so far, the jobs to be done?
Getting lots of emojis thrown in the chat here. We are loving it.
Sweet. Okay, awesome. Now that Anya has broken down these are the tracks that my customers do that bring them to my doorstep or that they need, you can then go, okay, what does what I offer align with what they're looking for? For her female exec, she might look and say, okay, like I can absolutely help you figure out like perfecting grounding techniques. How do you manage calm and stress? I can help you with experimenting with posture and movement in a way that influences and informs your confidence. And then I can also help with that async coaching, because I imagine that female execs, a lot of you are on planes all the time and traveling all the time. So we can do this async via text or video. Now that she's looked through and seen, okay, these are where there's a value exchange, where what I'm doing aligns with what they're looking for. These are opportunities for monetization. It doesn't mean that I'm going to monetize everything, but now I know, right? I know and I can understand this is where I deliver value, and this is where I can ask for something in exchange for the value that I deliver. For Anya, what it might look like is she might decide to go, for each of these different things for my dancers, I'm going to put a price tag on it. I'm going to put a price tag on us going through your technique and me helping you diagnose what actually has gone wrong, right? I'm going to help you diagnose that, oh, there's an issue with your turn and it's being driven by not enough momentum. Or she could look at her entire range and go, I'm going to package all of this. I'm going to package this end to end and offer this as one big package with 4 sessions, and each session will do something specific. There's different things that she can play with now that she understands the value that she's going to be delivering to her customers. For her female execs, she might look through everything that they're looking for and go, okay, this is definitely packaging, but I might bring in an extra tier if you're looking for async coaching. There's things she can do and play with now that she's looking at that value. The other benefit of doing this jobs to be done study is that it allows you to understand and build out a roadmap in the future. It allows you to understand what my customers looking for, what tasks do they need to complete that I actually don't offer yet. So let's say you've got Joe who has a SaaS product. She's got 3 different types of customers. She does this jobs to be done framework. She does the tasks. And then she realizes, oh, there's a couple of things that like my customers need to do that I currently don't do. Right, my enterprise clients are looking for like dashboards for clients. My SMBs want to be able to track completion times. My BAU kind of smaller scale customers are looking for being able to like send automatic reminders. I didn't have that on my roadmap Maybe we put it in the backlog and we size it. Maybe we talk about that, right? So doing this framework, sitting down and stepping back and going, what are the tasks my customers need to do to complete their own ends, their own ambitions, their own ultimate aims, and where does my value intersect with them? Not only allows you to determine, okay, what can I monetize? And it doesn't mean that you monetize everything. It just allows you to see this is where there's a value exchange. But then it also allows you to see where have I not even thought about stepping into, but it might be a need and it might be worth just scoping and figuring out if it's worth delivering as added value to my customers. Does this all make sense so far? Any questions on this?
Mm-hmm.
Lots of emojis. Are we having some breakthroughs, team? Yeah.
Love this.
Awesome. Love to hear it. Alrighty. So what you do next, actually, before we do that, let's take a minute. I would love for everyone to take a pen and a paper, or just like think about this in your head and just like think about one of your customer types. So not all of them, just pick one of the customer types that you serve. So for example, Tisa, which is a juice company, you might think about, do you serve like regular people who are coming in and like, who are the customers you're serving? Think about one of those segments and just think about what are 3 things that they need to do? What are 3 jobs to be done that they might have that brings them to my doorstep? And let's all just kind of take a minute and play with it so you can see if it feels intuitive or if you have any questions when you actually try to do it. And I'll give us just like a minute for that. Just kind of test it and see if it feels intuitive to you. All right. Any thoughts?
So Lisa says, number 1, worried about inconsistent revenues. Number 2, tired of only exchanging time for money, and money is taking more and more time. And number 3, always thinking they need more leads. And Lisa is a sales consultant coach.
Okay. So Lisa, what are the things that a customer then does if they're trying to solve one of those problems? So you said they're worried about trading time for money. What does that lead them to do? Are they then like doing a Google search to try and find out ways to make more money? Like what do they do specifically, like in terms of actual actions that then leads them to finding your coaching practice?
Lisa says, my insurance agents think the answer is more cold calls. Her mic's not working right now. No worries, Lisa. We got you.
Okay, so they're doing the cold calling. And as part of that process, so they think it's more cold calling, maybe that's working, maybe that's not. And then there might be other tasks that they're doing that then leads them to going and finding or intersecting with you somehow. So it could be, I'm doing more cold calling, I'm finding that frustrating. I'm doing a Google search of what are the other ways that I can use to optimize my revenue. I'm trying to understand, I've done a Google search, now I need to parse through all of the different options and articles that come up around like trading time for money. It could be like literally step by step by step. What are the things that they're doing that then leads them to intersect and to find your product? And when they find it, how are they using it? What helps them basically end that transaction of, and now I feel like I have a strategy for not trading time for money anymore. Now I feel like I have a strategy for never having to do another cold call ever again. So that's what it looks like to do that jobs to be done framework. And I encourage people to start by trying it out by yourself. So you sit down with your team and work through this by yourself. And then if you find that, okay, now we have like kind of an MVP, we have a draft of what we think are the customer's jobs and needs, then you can actually put it in front of a customer and have a customer kind of like validate or say, oh, there's a gap here, or I actually did this, I talked to 3 other coaching consultants before I spoke to you, or whatever that looks like. It just helps you figure out and make sure that you feel out that jobs to be done framework like in a robust manner. So you've done the jobs to be done. You've kind of mapped out the monetization zones. You've decided that, okay, like there's really, let's say Anya did that, and Anya was like, okay, with the female executives, there's really, really, really something I want to lean into with offering a full package service. And then maybe I put the async coaching as like separate to that, as like an add-on. I think I want to like test that. I want to like figure out what should I charge for that actually. You take all of the work that you've done and you put it into step two. Step two is where you actually quantify willingness to pay. And in step two, you're basically asking your customers 4 questions. It's pretty much, what would you pay for this? Or what if this cost this amount? What is the amount at which you would feel like this was so cheap you wouldn't even consider it, right? What is the $1,000 budget matchmaker version of this like dimension that I'm putting in front of you? All the way to like, what would the price be that's so expensive that you would think that it was basically like ripping you off? And there's 2 others in between. In the Pricing Edge report, it's free, you can download it. I walk you through, the team kind of walks you through step by step how to quantify willingness to pay. And how do you what are the questions you should ask? How do you ask them? Who do you ask them to? You should also be talking to your team members because they also are SMEs sometimes in whatever you're selling. And so it's helpful to also ask them these questions to kind of gathering like a consensus and a robust data set that you can then use to understand what we call our zone of reasonable prices, which is at this price point, this tier of like async coaching is way too expensive. At this price point, it's super cheap and nobody would want to consider it as being useful. And so our pricing needs to be somewhere in between that, right? So it allows you to kind of generate a range of pricing, and then the report walks you through how do you then determine what the actual price should be. But let's assume that you've done that. So you've quantified willingness to pay, you have a price. Let's talk about the behavioral science behind this. How do you frame prices in a way that allows you to then convert your customers?
And a quick couple of questions, if that's okay. April asked, how do you suggest going through this exercise if you're just beginning a consulting practice and you're trying to figure out your value proposition? She doesn't have any customers yet.
What I would do, April, is your target customers, the folks who, there's 2 ways to do this. You can either talk to like your target customers and just ask them what are they paying other consultants for what you're offering to start with, and that just gives you like a range. Do not benchmark necessarily to that range, but what you can do is understand, all right, if I'm going to be offering these 3 things, I'm going to talk to my target customers about like, what would you pay for this? What would you pay for that? What would you pay for that? And that just gives you like something to start to work with. As you get customers, you can start to refine that pricing, or you could mystery shop. I don't know how detailed and how technical the work that you're going to be doing is or what the consulting is, but there's no reason you couldn't like call up a competitor and just like kind of figure out what their pricing is, right? This is what I'm looking for. What are your price tiers? They might tell you, oh, we charge this starting here, we charge that starting here. And that also gives you like kind of a range. But I would recommend just calling up like your potential customers. And then for each of those different monetizations, just have a chat with them around, what would you roughly pay for this? What would you roughly pay for that? And that might be a good place to kind of start from. The other thing that you could do is if there are friendlies in your domain, if there are other people who you work with, and I did this when I was starting up Decision Alpha, I know a lot of behavioral science consultants. I knew I was going to be doing something different from what they do, but I spoke to almost like 20 different behavioral science consultants who ran successful businesses and just kind of like felt around for like, what were they charging? What were the charging models? And what that allowed me to do was go, okay, so no, yes, I like how you're thinking about this. And it gave me a framework for how I should think through my own pricing. So I didn't use it necessarily for what should I charge, but how should I think through pricing? And that was useful to me. So the answer to your question, April, is talk to your potential customers, talk to do some mystery shopping, and talk to friendlies who are also in the consulting practice that you're in.
That's awesome. And then Tisa has her hand up as well.
Yes. So you hit some of the questions that I had, but for me, I've already hit my target audience. So I know that, okay, I could be looking at smoothie, options, and so I know the typical people go to X, Y, and Z places, but mine stands out because I have premium ingredients in mine. So my juices are tailored to ginger juices. My smoothies are tailored to sea moss smoothies. Both of those key components are premium. They already know what some of my customers, they already knew of the two premium ingredients that I'm offering. So now I'm trying to figure out how to get more customers to continue to purchase these premium products that I'm selling. And then how do I hit a different target audience, because I'm right now I feel like I'm only either hitting maybe 10% of my people who don't know what those key benefits are good for their bodies, and then the rest of the 80 something percent they already know. So what more can I do to continue to get that information out to not only existing customers, but now I'm trying to target new customers to keep the business generating and going, because again, this business is just starting off as well.
Are you talking to storefronts that could carry a product? Like, I know that I see those two products in very specific kinds of storefronts. Those might be other customer segments that you chat with and position yourself with them too. Like, if you're talking to like a store that already sells like organic products, so they understand the use of like the CMOS and like those kinds of ingredients, are you chatting to the owners of other businesses who could carry that for you?
No, so I need to do that.
Yes.
Okay.
And when you talk with them, that's also an opportunity for you to do some pricing research with them and say, the other kinds of drinks that you carry that have a similar kind of like premium positioning or specialty ingredients, what is the range at which you charge? What's the markup? How much do you get from it? What would you expect to charge? You can use that pricing. I studied, it has the specific questions in there. But you can use that with those folks that you're speaking with, the business owners, to understand what is the range of prices I should be charging for when I'm being carried in a storefront specifically, right? There's the store part of it you could be talking to. There's people who have online businesses that you could be talking to, people who have like two-sided marketplaces where they're looking for new innovative brands to like put onto the marketplace. You could be speaking with for all of those different customer segments. As you identify them and as you start to parse them out, you should also be talking through with them about like the different prices that you might offer them. So you might have the same drink, but it's cost differently depending on which customer is purchasing it.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions?
We do. Wanda says, can you speak to the situation where your customer and your decision makers are different people and having these conversations with each tier? Going out on a limb, Wanda, maybe you're dealing with a process where the customer is the CEO, but you're dealing with a procurement or purchasing person on the other end of that.
Not quite. Our product is in schools, so our customers are counselors and the students. However, the decision makers are either the principals or the respective school districts or IT purchasing at some schools. So the decision makers are their goals and priorities are very different. And so when we're talking about pricing and having a conversation of that she was mentioning before of what would they pay for this and all that, that conversation is different with each tier. And so just speaking to that.
Who pays for the product? Is it the decision makers?
Yes.
Like, what's the budget?
It varies, but depending upon the school and the respective school districts.
So the people who you should be doing the research with would be the people who actually have the money, right? The people who you do the pricing research with, specifically just the pricing research, is going to be the people who have the money. But then also in general, when you're selling to folks who the budget is different from the person who is going to experience the impact, you already know this, you're going to be selling multiple times, right? You're going to sell to the customer,
right.
You're going to sell to the decision maker, and then you have to sell to a third room, which is the customer and decision maker in the room together.
Right.
And so you do your pricing research with the decision maker and with them that you're positioning the pricing with and you're talking through all of that with. But the selling process is going to be, you basically have three types of customers: the person, the counselors, the school kind of like admins, and then the relationship between the counselors and the school admins is another person that you're selling to. And you have to kind of think about it like that as well.
Okay.
Is that useful? Did you have a more specific question to that?
Well, no, you were just giving some examples of how we have those types of conversations. And so I just wanted to mention for me and for anyone else in situations where those tiers exist. And so it's not always as straightforward. So just making sure that was mentioned.
Exactly. And where it's not like a straight line of, okay, the person who's paying for it is the person who's going to get the value of it. I think it's still worth doing that process of understanding what is the value to the school admins, right, of them onboarding our product, right? What is the process that the school admin actually goes through? Because it's sort of like you might have a self-assessment of it is counselors who need to use our ed tech the most. But there's going to be a reason why there's going to be a reason why like a school administrator pays for the product. And so you might still do that customer's jobs to be done the journey, but from the admin's perspective. So when you're sat across from the admin, you're speaking their language and kind of chatting to them across those tiers that like resonate more with them. Do you see what I'm saying?
I do.
Okay. If there's any other questions?
I think we are good to keep rolling.
Okay, awesome. Alrighty, so perceived value. We already talked about how psychology and context can inform and influence how we like derive or ascribe value to something. So I wanted to go through this example with all of you. Pretend that you have a storefront, and in the storefront, you've got enough space that you're not using, but in front of that storefront, there's kind of like a lot of foot traffic. So you decided that you want to open up like a mini cafe, like you want in the mornings when there's a ton of foot traffic going in front of your store, you want to offer coffee, you want to capture some revenue from all those people who are going to be walking in front of your store. So you don't want to open up like a big cafe. You're not trying to do the most, but you do want to have people be able to come in, pop in, buy coffee and leave for about 3 or 4 hours in the morning. Because you don't want to open up a coffee business, you have your own business that you care about, you just have this space and you think you can optimize this space. You're thinking to yourself, all right, I'm going to lease the coffee making equipment. I don't want to invest in it. I'm not trying to do this forever. So you go ahead and you start doing some research to the different kind of people who lease coffee machines. I don't know what they're called, but pretend that they exist. You talk to the first person and they're like, we've got a great kind of industrial coffee maker for you. And what it does, it offers custom grind options, so you can make sure that your coffee is being made by a barista perfectly every time. It is $175 every month. You're like, okay, let's talk to somebody else. The next person, we've got a fantastic option, also great industrial size coffee machine, is going to work well for your needs. Absolutely has those custom grind options, but we also offer real-time insights into foot traffic. And so your procurement manager can take a look at our dashboards and be able to understand, okay, maybe have this much available at this time, have less available here, buy this much on Tuesdays. It's super helpful for customizing your needs. This package is $225 a month. Before we go any further, I want all of us who are not coffee experts, I assume, and if you are, forgive me, like I'm not a coffee expert, so I made some of this stuff up. But let's take a step back and look at these two options and just in the chat, kind of like put whichever one like resonates more with you. Which one would you go for? There's no right answer here. I'm just curious, like what the options are when you have these two kind of options in front of you. What is your selection?
So we have quite a few who want the insights, the real-time analytics. I think everyone so far.
Okay. That's interesting. Usually there's like a split between some folks being like, could not care less about analytics. I know I'm only open for 3 hours, like it's fine. But all right, it sounds like we're converging on the 225. Let's say you talk to one more person, one more vendor, and they say, again, we've got this fantastic industrial coffee maker. It's amazing. But what we do is you get the custom grind options. We're going to give you those insights into foot traffic. We also have an AI-based platform that actually optimizes grind settings based on your order. You never get it's going to taste great every single time because of this AI platform. And we also bring on board a fractional hospitality expert for you. And what that person is going to do is give you insights into the hospitality business. They'll help you out with any questions you need. They'll be like a coach for you for 4 hours every month. That package is $485 a month. Now, remember that you didn't set up to become like the Gordon Ramsay of coffee. You just have some space. You want to sell some coffee in the mornings. What option are you leaning towards now that you see all three in front of you?
We're still on 225, but we do have a couple of 175s chiming in. Kate and Hannah.
Okay.
Sasha says she would start at 175 and consider 485.
Oh, interesting.
Natalia's a 175 as well.
Okay. So usually what we see in BE, we call this a compromise effect. We see that when people are not quite sure of how to evaluate something, we're like, none of us are coffee experts. We're not domain experts in like the hospitality business necessarily. Most people kind of go with the middle option. Like they go, I don't want to be too low. I don't want to be too high. I'm going to compromise and choose the middle option. That's called the compromise effect. And it's why you'll see oftentimes a lot of companies will have like 3 options that you can choose from. And then most people will kind of like see, but they expect that a bulk of their revenue is going to come from that middle option, that 225, because we talk about in the behavioral sciences, people are boundedly rational. And what that means is that we've got limited time, limited attention, limited memory. We make more than 10,000 decisions every day. And that is from waking up in the morning. Should I go out of bed or not? Should I brush my teeth or not? Should I make breakfast this morning? Should I cross the road here? Should I walk an extra block? Should I take the car this morning? We make all the way up to from should I tie my shoelaces to what kind of mortgage should I get? We're making tens of thousands of decisions every single day. And so you can imagine that we're not bringing the maximum amount of like mental capacity to every single decision. A lot of decisions that we're making is on autopilot because our brain cannot handle putting all the time and effort needed to evaluate and parse every single decision properly. So the compromise effect comes to be where we're like, I'm not really sure what the right option is. I'm just going to go with the middle one and we can make changes, right? I'm going to start at 175 and maybe I'll go up to 225. I'll start at 225. I'll toggle up or down as I need to. That's the compromise effect. That's the, it's sort of like how when we saw the Ebbinghaus illusion, we could see like whether you had bigger circles or smaller circles around the orange dot affected how big or small we thought the dot was. That's what we're doing. It's a very similar thing that we're doing here. I'm going to give you one more example on this. So again, coffee shop, you still want to do the same things. You still have the same options, but now the 485 option, there's no custom grind options. There's no real-time insights, nothing. It's just, we're going to give you a good enough coffee maker. It does the same thing that other people's coffee makers do, but we also will bring a fractional hospitality expert to come kind of guide you through this process. Now you might be looking at all of this and going, that 485 kind of seems like a bum deal. It kind of seems like I don't really need or want that. And so what it does is that 485 steers your attention back to us deciding only between the 175 and the 225. Where before you were looking at all 3 prices and going, okay, which one do I want? Some folks are like, maybe I do want the 485. Some people were like, maybe I want 175. A lot of people are like, I think we're still going with the middle. But now that the 485 has been put there, it kind of forces us to go, okay, the real options are 175 or 225. We call this the decoy effect. And it's where companies intentionally put an option that is what we call asymmetrically dominated, which is basically just means that it's bad on some counts, right? You look at it and you're like, it's not that great. Companies put up an option that's asymmetrically dominated in some parts of it to force customers or to gently maneuver customers towards focusing on other price points where they think there's better value. And so a customer might run and model its numbers based off of like we've put this 45 option, but we know that 90% of people are going to be between 225 and 175, and we expect that a bulk of them are going to be in 225. And so we model that. So even though we put out the 45, we did it knowing full well it was going to be a decoy, and most people would not touch that option at all. And so that's the decoy effect. That's another way where the way you frame your pricing can inform and influence how people are choosing and what they're choosing and interacting with your product. There's so many other ways where psychology comes to bear in pricing. For example, if you're a CPG company, research shows that it actually might make more sense for you to offer bonuses rather than discounts. So rather than saying get $2 off, you can say you get 20 liters more with your purchase, right? You get an extra product with your purchase. In that domain, folks love bonuses. If you're a professional doing like consulting or offering professional services, it might be better instead of a bonus saying, you know, I'll do a bonus 5 hours of work for you. It might be better to actually offer a discount and say, hey, I'll give you a discount of 5% if you pay all the money up front, right? And if you're offering discounts and you're in the professional services, always spell out what the number is. So I will give you a discount of $1,500. Don't say 5%. Give them the actual number so it feels bigger and feels weightier. But pretty much there's ways and techniques like that that impact and inform what you're pricing, how you frame that pricing, and how your customers end up choosing. So many different things that we could cover, but all of that to say, how you frame prices will help you communicate your product's value, and it will also guide your customer's choice.
So
Go on.
Sorry, we have a hand up with Carrie.
Mm-hmm.
Hi. It looks like a couple other people had the same kind of gut punch response in the chat. To me, the decoy effect feels like now my brand integrity and the trust might be a little compromised, because if I don't truly value that third option, now I'm not perceiving enough value overall. It's not something I want to aspire to add to my spend or investment in the future. It feels, as someone said in the chat, it feels a little manipulative. Could you speak to that a little bit?
Well, and just to back Etinosa up here, I know she's got a better, more comprehensive explanation, but I'll say we'll throw things out there. And if it comes to bear and someone's excited to do that, and it's a higher price point than we expected, that's a win. It's not necessarily that we don't see it as being as valuable as it is. It's just that it's kind of a moonshot price. So I don't think the proposal here is that you pad the cost artificially, but you may just be offering more than you know many people are willing to address. But I'm sure that you've run into this feedback before.
Yes, totally. So actually, The Economist, if we're familiar with The Economist, back in the day, they had used the decoy effect in this way. So they had the print magazine option. Let's say they had the print for $100 annual subscription. They had the digital subscription for, let's say, $84. So you could get print for $100, digital for $84. And then they had print plus digital for $100. Now, what was the decoy in that situation?
Print.
Exactly. Why would you go for just one option that's $100 when you could go for both the print and the digital, and you could get that more value? So there's different ways where you're using, and it's not necessarily being manipulated. It could be that if my grandmom back in the day, when she wasn't like a social media maven that she is now, and was really like truly just give me the print. I would never use the digital option. I just want the print option, and I don't want them wasting like space on a digital like thing that I'm not going to use. Just give me the print. She might decide actually the best thing for me is that $100. The Economist is not expecting that everybody's going to be like my grandmom and is going to want just the print for $100 when they could get print and digital for the same price. But by making that available, they know that they're going to get more people to understand this is the full range of value that we offer. And most people are going to choose in a way that's kind of like maximizing to their interest. But there might also still be some people, to Rachel's point, who go, that one quirky thing, actually, I think I would like that, right? Fractional hospitality expert. I don't know anything about the cafe industry. Maybe it's worth it for me to go in that direction. So in behavior economics, we talk about this idea of kind of like every choice that you make is shaped in one way or another. So even up to the path that you choose to walk when you're walking, it's been intentionally designed by an urban planner. Where you turn the lights on in your home has been designed. The cereal in front of you when you go shopping, the stuff that's in the middle, they paid more money to be in the middle, right at your eye level. Everything in your world has been designed intentionally. And so there's never really a situation where there is no intentionality behind what's being put in front of you. In most cases, somebody has thought through and has figured out, okay, we want to charge this in this way, we want to present this in this manner because we think that people are going to do X or Y. And so it is not necessarily manipulative as much as it is just intentionality in everything in the world around you. And it kind of then is up to you to understand and determine, how do I take my knowledge of how people make decisions and help frame things in a way that is more likely to get them towards an option that they want, that I also would like for them to choose, without restricting or limiting any options, right? The economists didn't go, we don't really think that most people are going to want a print only, so we're going to not offer that. They said, here's the offer, but we don't think it's as great as this other offer we have, but we're going to make it all available to you. So we really focus on, in behavioral economics, not restricting choice. You want all the options open, but you do want to present them in a way that you know people are going to interact more with one choice versus another choice. Does that help?
Yeah, sorry. Thank you.
Yeah, and that's a really good question. And I think it also goes back to what we struggle with sometimes as business owners. It's like, what feels good? What feels ethical? What feels like, I was talking to somebody, because I invest in real estate, and I was talking to somebody who was grossly undercharging for her, but it was terrible. She was way undercharging. And she's like, I just feel bad for the tenants. Like, I just feel bad. I'm like, what can people afford? I was like, your prices are $2,200 cheaper than everybody else's in your neighborhood. Do you know what that's doing to your margins? You cannot afford to pay your mortgage. And so there's a point at which you have to go, I want to make sure that people are getting maximum value. And what you're building should be offering people maximum value. You have a great product, you built it to the highest levels of sophistication. It truly changes lives. It truly makes people's lives easier. It truly helps people become better salespersons. You want to make sure that you're getting, in addition to the value you're delivering, you're also getting your worth, right? You want to make sure you're also allowing people to pay you for the impact that you're making in their lives. So that's one of the things that, one of the psychological obstacles I think we all think through and try and figure out as business owners. And it's absolutely a great question to ask. So to kind of sum up, a couple of things we've touched on today. Pricing involves psychology and perception. It's not just math. We want to think about, how do we price for the value that we're delivering, that impact we're making? And you want to use the jobs to be done framework. When you start doing that, people won't remember prices as well as we think. There's no spotlight effects. There's a threshold at which people will, react. But in general, you have more leeway than you think to try and get this right. You have more leeway than you think to introduce new pricing, to play around with pricing tiers, to figure out what's going to work well and what won't work well, and how do we make sure our pricing scales with us. You can access that report I mentioned, the Pricing Edge framework. It walks you through this stuff kind of step by step and kind of breaks things down in detail. Finally, final two things. We often see that price is a reaction, meaning you have built a great product, you keep adding new features, it keeps being of value to people. And it's not until you're getting some pressure, or not until you see that your metrics are kind of getting a little bit into the red, that you go, oh, maybe we should raise our prices. We believe that pricing should be a feature and not a reaction. What does that mean? It means on your roadmap, you have moments where you have intentionally penciled out, we're going to sit down and we're going to think about the pricing as related to the value that we've delivered. All the stuff we shipped in the last quarter, let's sit down and let's think through, are we still priced right? It doesn't mean we're going to change anything, but it does mean that every so often we sit down, we look at what we're charging, and we figure out, is this still right size for the value that we're delivering? What that allows you to do then is that when you're ready to raise your prices, you don't run into all of the psychological hangups that we talked about earlier. There's less dread, there's less anxiety, there's less guesstimation, there's less fear. And there's definitely less underpricing because now there's intentionality in the way you're thinking through and doing the research around your prices. Final thing, specifically as women, your work is worthy, your work is valuable, your work is useful, your work drives impact in the world, and you want to make sure that you are charging accordingly and getting the value on your end for the value that you're delivering to other people. So that is what I wanted to talk through today. I'm going to pause here for any questions, but I will say, if you got anything from this, I would love if you could help me out. New business, we're like doing the things. If you could like go on LinkedIn and just like type a little testimonial around like, I attended this session with Etinosa, Decision Alpha, and here's what I learned. That also helps me understand, where did you guys get value from the session? Where can I lean into more? Where can I clarify more? So it's really helpful for me as well. So if you don't mind leaving like a little thing on LinkedIn, just tag me, tag the business. We'd really appreciate that. And while we're here, if anyone has any questions, I can take a couple questions as well.
And I'm dropping links in the chat for Decision Alpha on LinkedIn and for Etinosa on LinkedIn. Sarah has a hand raised.
Etinosa, I love your storytelling in your presentation. Fantastic. Thank you so much. And I love the way you went back and changed the story from when we were talking about the decoy to the print version. Really enjoyed that as well. My question to you is, I'm in a place where I am trying to grow my business more. So I'm in a comfortable place, but I'd like to see it grow. And I've always had a pricing paradigm, whatever you want, pricing points for the work that we do. I'm the one that put in the chat that there's, even when that RFP says their budget is this, I go back and I really think about the time we're putting into it. And I look at the deliverables so I'm not undervaluing my work, and I'm able to pay my consultants what their value is. But there are a couple things that are happening. One, with the current state of affairs, there's a lot of people losing their job. So therefore, there's a lot more competition. And what I'm hearing from my clients are, we're going to try this new kid on the block. I'm all for. And of course, they're underbid, way more than we would charge. Sometimes it works out well, and sometimes it doesn't. Most of my business is done by word of mouth. So we hope that people will come back to us. My question to you is, how do I move in that direction? I've thought about improving and increasing prices on some of the things that we do. I just don't know that it's the right time to do that because of all the external forces. But I also don't feel like, some of the work that we've done price points with, the things that people are offering isn't the same. So to use your vase analogy, your clients think they're getting the same vase in two different contexts, but our vase actually is laced with gold. And so you're expecting to pay a little bit more. Is it me not communicating that well? Should I be putting that in print? I mean, like I said, our marketing is usually, word of mouth. Help me understand what you would do if you were in my situation.
Okay, so the situation is competitive landscape, seeing more competition. Our value is differentiated from our competitors, but our customers don't know that, right? They don't see the difference here. Like a vase is a vase, I just need a vase, right?
Correct.
Okay. First thing that I would do is, since you have already built and developed relationships with people and you're seeing that people are losing jobs, the first thing I'd be doing is reaching out to every single person who I've ever worked with in my business, every single one of my clients, and saying, I know things are difficult right now. I just wanted to check in and see how you're going. You want to make sure you're getting back to just like, the human element. I want to be top of mind. I want to make sure that if there's any way I can support you in this moment, you're not selling anything, but if there's anything that you're seeing that I can help with, happy to help. Let's jump on a call.
Beautiful. Okay.
That helps you just come back to being like the top of mind. That reminds them that you already have established a relationship with them. You have delivered, you have come through. Nobody wants to try the risky option if they can afford it. Like if they, we would rather just work with somebody who we've worked with before and we know that they delivered. So start by just doing that exercise to make sure you're getting back to top of mind and that you're interacting as just a human being they really liked and they enjoyed working with. That's number one. Number two is differentiation. If you're in a competitive landscape where everyone is offering like marketing services consulting, maybe it's time to pivot from offering marketing services consulting to offering retention focused consulting, or to, market, or to offering resource expansion consulting, right? It's still what you do, but you're figuring out, how do I differentiate it? How do I make sure I'm creating a bit of a moat in with my marketing and saying, this is very specifically what we do. A lot of times it can be easy for us to say, it's easy to want to keep doing what we've always done in the way we've always done it. But the way you scale your business is that sometimes there's a time to kind of pivot. There's a time to try a new way of positioning. There's a time to lean into a new skill set that's been developed. So it could be for you that not with everybody, but maybe you take a handful of customers and you say, we used to do this with you. Here's how we're going to be doing it a little bit differently moving forward. This is why it's differentiated. And that might then help with okay, what does that cost? Especially in a time when that, there's a lot of if people are losing jobs, I'm hearing resources are constrained. I'm hearing, okay, we need people who know how to work with the kind of resources that we have and deliver more value in a time when resources are constrained. That's an opportunity that you can lean into and you already have that expertise. So it might just be a matter of, yes, positioning, but I also think that just picking up the phone or reaching out to people and saying, as a human being, how's it going? How can I help you in this time? Might also go a long way with helping them reestablish and remember, we worked with her, she delivered great value. Let's talk about working with her again. Is that useful?
Extremely useful. And I like the people-oriented, centric advice. So very, very nice, very in line with what I would like to do as well. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right, if there's no other questions, I promised you guys I was going to show you a way to work with me. If you would like to do this, it's a free kind of 15-minute strategy audit. What we're going to do is make sure we leave the conversation with at least one monetization zone or something you can explore that can help you make sure that your pricing is not leaving any value behind. So if you're kind of in that growth stage, or you've kind of established already, you have customers, you're generating revenue, accelerators, VCs, that's probably a good fit for this. But feel free to grab some time with me. It is every Monday, so it's going to be within the time block on Monday. It's running through to the end of this month, I believe. So feel free, if you want to do a pricing strategy audit, you want to have somebody kind of put eyes on your pricing and talk through it and talk through that strategy with you, feel free to grab some time with me and I'm happy to kind of lean in. So again, thank you, Rachel. Thank you, WTE, for having me. I have loved this conversation and really, truly had a good time. Thank you all.
Amazing. And I'm going to be sharing that link out in a recap email because I know some of you might be away from the keyboard at the moment, or you might want to kind of flounder through this for a little bit longer on your own if you're as stubborn as I am. But I think an important thing that we do well as a community is asking for and getting help. And this is a great, great offer and opportunity. Wanda, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, I was just making sure, since that Monday is a holiday, I was just making sure. I saw you had time slots. I was just making sure it was still legit, good to go.
Which of the Mondays? I don't remember holidays anymore.
Memorial Day, May 26th.
I'll be working.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. This was huge. It has me rethinking quite a few things. And I'm seeing lots of amazing feedback and thank yous and outpouring of love here in the chat.
I have one. I'm sorry, Rachel.
Yeah,
This is the I have one quick question.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking at your calendar for the 19th. It shows availability, but when you click on it, it doesn't have anything.
I am in Mexico on the 19th, so it shouldn't show any availability because I will not be here, but I'm here the week after and maybe even into June as well.
Okay.
Enjoy Mexico.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions?
This was really great. I learned a ton.
Awesome. Glad to hear it.
Oh, one other question I just thought of. When you say do comparisons from what your company does versus what another company does if you're doing the same thing, for me, because I'm in a different, I'm not in like a tech entrepreneurship role.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel about doing a versus, like their product versus my product type of informational card or something of that nature?
I think that could be great, especially if your product is actually delivering more value and you're doing it in a factual way, check with your lawyer, et cetera, et cetera. But that can be really great for positioning yourself. What you're doing is, again, with the Ebbing House illustrations and those circles that we saw, you're using that comparison as one of those circles. You're using it to drive the illusion of, here is how my product is way more valuable and delivers way more compared to the average sugar-laced thing you see on the shelves. So that can be a really good strategy, actually. Just make sure you check with your lawyer and, so you don't get sued for stuff.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Amazing.
I have a question. Is that possible? This is Jay Wilson. So I recently got contacted by a potential small business to do some marketing like designs for them. They're like they do like grant writing, and they wanted me to kind of do like a design consultation with them at first to kind of see like how my designs work with their needs, for their marketing. And so like they do grant writing proposals as well and stuff like that. So my question is like, how do you manage like design consultations as far as like pricing? I know that, a lot of times we're doing these things for free, but we're also, providing a service. And then if they like it, of course, hopefully there's potential need for a partnership there. But also, like I said, you're also allocating time towards, creating something for them, but not actually gaining any funds for it.
So the design consultation is that you're going to build something for them, and then they're going to see if it fits with their company's aesthetic.
Correct. Yes.
So you would charge for that. You would take whatever. Do you work in packages or do you work in an hourly rate?
Typically I work by project, but like if like that project need starts to acquire more time allocated past the project price, depending on if there's like major design changes after the second draft, or they just want something, completely different after I've already, spent time, designing a first and second draft, or size changes, like if I'm making like a book cover design or something like that. So I mostly do like a lot of graphic designing, but I also am a professional user experience designer as well. So my range is pretty vast. So logos, business cards, website designing, like I said, book covers, flyers, stuff like that.
Okay, so what you want to do is introduce a design consultation tier to your pricing and charge a flat fee for that. And say I will offer up to 2 hours or 3 hours, however many it is, worth of work on this, or I will offer you one design consultation, and it's going to be XYZ kind of prototype or deliverable or whatever. It is a flat fee of X $100 or X $1,000, whatever your fee looks like. But absolutely be getting paid for that. If you're going to work on it, just tell them it's a service you offer. This is what it costs. And if they want to work with you, they will pay that cost. And you could also do it in such a way that this is what it costs if you want the design consultation. If we end up working together, I will decrement that, right? I'll take that out of the actual package we end up working together on.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Love that. No working for free.
Exactly.
Ariel, is an amazing growth strategist here with us tonight. She shares that she's used that third option as well.
Awesome. I love that.
All right. If no one else is feeling brave with questions, we're going to make it easy to connect. But this is our last call for those group discussions.
I guess I'm bored. Let me get a little boring. I think one of the issues that I'm experiencing is, is quoting, but then is not factoring in after you deliver your product or services, the aftermath of charging for additional things that were not part of the project, but still, it's important to the customers for them to come back. So it's like, how do you factor in that pricing that you might spend an additional 5 to 10 hours later on, not at once, but later, throughout the year, servicing that customer, but you can no longer, tag it into a project.
What you can do is introduce a retainer. So have an additional add-on too. So this is what the project is going to cost. I have an optional 30-day retainer if you want me to help with implementation, if you want me to help with any issues or accesses, etc., that come up as you implement my recommendations. It's going to be, this is what it's going to cost, right? So you could either do it like, okay, it's 30 days and you have access to me for the 30 days afterwards, or you could do it based off of like, I have a 12-hour retainer. So for the next 6 months, only for the next 6 months after I work with you, you have 12 hours of my time at this rate. So every time you come back to me, I'm going to be tapping into that retainer. The minimum is an hour, right? So every time you come back to me, I'm going to charge you at least XYZ for coming back to me. So just set the expectation with them upfront is the answer to your question. Build a package and just set that expectation upfront around, you will want to work with me again. You will have questions. This is what it's going to cost to access me afterwards.
Okay. Thank you.
Love that. I cannot thank you enough. I know that this is going to be one of those workshops that we've done where people come back for months and years and tell us how much it transformed their business and their opportunities. And I really appreciate you for making this possible. I know you all are going to do your homework, open the email, get the link. If you didn't already schedule that meeting, you're going to schedule it. You're going to go leave the comments for Decision Alpha and for Etinosa, and we're going to see all of you at our May events.
And thank you so much for having me and being a great interactive group. I really love this conversation. So thank you all.
It's a lot of fun.
Thank you so much. This was incredible.
Thank you.
Whoop, whoop.
Hi, Kim. Do you mean to do the hand up?
I did not. I'm sorry.
Don't be sorry. That's okay. Good night, Lisa. Good night, all. So the recording, it'll take a little bit of time to process. Inevitably, someone will kind of be stuck on the call, not realizing that they haven't left the meeting. So as soon as everyone is logged out of the meeting, it will process. I'll trim it back so that you don't have a massive MP4 to deal with, and I'll put it in a Google Drive for you.
Awesome. That sounds great. Really, thank you so much. This was so excellent. Thank you.
You are incredible, an absolute force. I feel so lucky to have you here, and I hope to see you at the next Tampa event. It'll be fun.
Yeah, I think I will be there.
And Susan, I'll see you in Orlando tomorrow. All right. I'll hop off. See ya.